3D printing really has become an integral part of the miniature wargaming hobby in recent years, and to be honest, it's kind of no surprise why. With 3D printers being more affordable than ever and a huge clutch of makers out there now making stuff for miniature wargaming, it's more accessible and affordable than it's ever been before. But it's safe to say the vast majority of hobby-related 3D printing is geared towards making minis, conversion parts and the like using resin 3D printers. But a good old-fashioned FDM printer does have a lot to offer our hobby, and you might just be surprised at how much a filament printer can elevate your hobby game. So today we're going to take a little look at some FDM prints geared towards the miniature wargaming hobby that I think are must-haves. And remember, if you don't have a 3D printer, that's fine. There are a ton of services out there that will print things for you on demand. Etsy especially has become a place where lots of people go to buy 3D printed products from small cottage industry makers. So let's get stuck into some awesome 3D printed gadgets and makes that you can't live without. Look, these things are great. Seriously, I love the GW hobby handle. But the truth is, once you've been painting a while, you often feel like you need quite a few of these. This printable handle from Actalion has a lot going for it and is one of my favourites of the many hobby handle designs that are out there. It has these various printable vices in different sizes, which you screw into the handle to form a really tight mechanical lock on the base of the Mini. Unlike the spring or rubber band versions, this makes it almost impossible for the piece to drop out of the handle. It's hard to see in this video, but I'm really shaking this guy. It's also a diddy little thing, which you might actually not be sure of at first, but this makes it so easy to turn it around in your hand, and it actually makes it super comfortable. One of the things that makes this handle super cool is that it's also really fast and really easy to print. You can run off multiples at a time because it doesn't take up a bunch of space on the print bed. And the icing on the cake is that it costs about 30p of filament to make one of these with a top for it, and that's about a 20th of the price of the GW one, which we consider to be a pretty cheap hobby accessory already. You can download this one from Printables, and there will be a link to it in the description below, so you can check that out, as well as all the other prints that we talk about today. They're all going to be down in the description. Now, I'm no stranger to a 3D printed water cup. I found this one ages ago on Thingiverse, and you can probably tell by the state of it that it's had a lot of use and is probably about in need of replacement. Now, when it comes to this existing cup, I particularly love the idea of it having a brush holder built into it. I mean, where better to keep your brushes, right, than right by your water pot? Unfortunately, this specific design, though, doesn't really execute that brush holder element super well, and that's something I didn't really realise until using it for a while. So I decided that even with my very limited design skills, I could head over to Tinkercad and design one of these for myself. And here it is. The big square shape of it makes it pretty spill-proof. The brushes sit in tubes, not in slots, meaning that they don't wobble about, and it still maintains the little ribs in the back, albeit in a bit of a chunkier design because I preferred that. It's worth noting that if you're planning to 3D print a water cup, it's pretty important that you seal the inside. You can do that with spray varnish, with spray paint, with PVA glue, just something that's going to make sure it's nice and watertight. But once you've done that, these things work great, and I love the chunky design of my one. I hope you like it too. And of course, if you do, then the STL is downloadable. There's a link in the description to Cults 3D where I hosted it, and you can grab one for yourself. Bits are really annoying. You need to keep them around. I mean, you've either got something to build out of them, or there's that FOMO of them being useful and you realising after you've thrown them away. But storing them can be a bit of a pain. Now, a solution I found which I really like happens to also be a printable item. These stackable storage bins are intended for storing hardware like nuts and bolts, but they happen to work beautifully for miniature bits. They have convenient little label holders so you can keep track of the contents of each bin. And when stacked up, they look really nice. You can even use different filaments to color code your parts if you wanted to go really crazy. I think it's pretty easy to see how this one could be mega useful. You can just keep stacking and stacking and stacking at your leisure. And again, it's cheap. These bins are pennies on the pound to make. So this one's hosted on Thingiverse, and again, as with the rest of them, link in the description, go check it out. I'm not sure how many of you follow us on Instagram, but if you do, then you might have noticed that just recently, my photos have started to look a little bit nicer. Now, I don't use my expensive camera for mini pics. On the contrary, my little mid-range Samsung phone is my weapon of choice. But the real secret, I think, is this backdrop. And the great news is that it's essentially 3D printed. The actual print is pretty much just these brackets, which you then insert a sheet of paper into in the color of your choice, and that creates your backdrop. In case of mine, it's sprayed the color I want it. Now, the big trick here is if you create a nice mottled textured backdrop like this, it actually really helps your camera to tell the difference between the mini and the background, which leads to much crisper, better focused pictures. So this one is available on printables.com, and I really can't recommend it enough. It is insane how much your mini painting photography levels up just from a good strong light and a decent backdrop, no extra skill whatsoever. Right then, if your finger is on the pulse of mini painting, you'll know that when it comes to dry brushing, tissue is just so last year. Instead, these days, mini painters are using these textured palettes so as to not pull all the moisture out of their brush. And I actually think that's a pretty good idea, so I designed one for 3D printing. Now, I have seen plenty of these that are made from scratch using bits out of your bits box and sand and stuff like that to create texture, but I think this is kind of an ideal 3D printing project. I have also seen a bunch of these that people have designed to fit the Army Painter wet palette, which I think is really cool if you happen to already own that palette. But mine is designed to just be a little portable thing which you can chuck somewhere out of the way and just grab it when you need it. Now again, because this is one of mine, it's available on Cults 3D, and I'll include a link to that, but also I'm going to include a link to that Army Painter one, because I think if you own that palette, that is a really cool little trick. So there you go. That's a little clutch of what I consider to be essential 3D prints that are all really awesome and will really help you as a miniature painter. There are so many people out there that are super clever and are inventing really cool stuff to help us as miniature painters. And with that in mind, and with how cheap FDM printers are getting now, I think that makes it a really good time to get into FDM printing. In fact, a little while ago, I actually made a video about my new FDM printer, which I'll put a link to up above the video, and you can check that out after this one if you like. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up to let YouTube know to show it to more people. And if you want to see more videos like it, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and that's going to make sure that my videos pop up in your feed more often. But I think that is all from me for now, because I have some prints that I want to sit and watch layer by layer. So thanks for watching, folks. I will see you in the next one, and bye-bye for now.